Hi, Renee. I love
Hey,
seeing faces.
good morning.
So
Good
and
morning,
Janet.
everyone.
Long time no see, Janet.
Hi, Casey.
So for those of you that have been on my call before, I don't care what you look like, smell like, don't look like, don't smell like. I so much prefer to look at you live, regardless of where you're at and what you're doing, than a little black box with your name on it. So if you're willing to be on video, I want to say thank you in advance. It brings energy. For those of you that spend a lot of time on Zooms, you might have had the experience that sometimes, if you're looking at a sea of black boxes and names, it's very challenging to interact and engage and give and receive energy in the same way. So a Zoom protocol that I attempt to do as much as oftenly possible, unless I'm getting out of the shower, in which I spare everyone from that experience, attempt to be on video. All right, so we're at the top of the hour and we're going to jump in today. I chuckle because I did this call a couple of weeks ago, and maybe it was last week, I'm not sure. Time seems to all be running and blending together. However, to create a foundation for this, Rick's been doing this call for going on 3 years now. And how it came about, just for those of you that may not know, is that he has been in the real estate sales industry for 41 years. And he had so many people and had so many people over the years that reached out and continue to reach out for looking for support and questions and ways to overcome challenges that they were having in their business. And there's only one Rick, even though it feels like sometimes there's 5 of him because of how far he extends himself. He never was, willing to tell anyone no. So he put this structure in place to be more efficient and effective and have one central place where people could come together to be fed and nourished and supported, regardless of what company you're in, regardless of how long you've been in the industry, a place for like-minded entrepreneurs in the industry of real estate to come together to work and improve their mindset around their business, as well as specific business strategies to take their businesses to the next level. And so he, God bless him, is devoted to all of you because while you only have seen his face in some of the calls he's done, he's been in some really interesting places to make sure that every week this gets delivered. He is physically impossibly unavailable today because he's on a plane to Arizona. And so I am standing in for him and excited to be with you. I bring a totally different perspective, and that's good, right? Because in a marriage or in a relationship, if you have 2 people that are the same, one of them becomes irrelevant. You don't need 2 people that are the same. So what's fun about partnership, whether it's business partnerships, marriage partnerships, is that you've got the value of having different perspectives, different voices on some of the same topics. And everything in life, from my perspective, is about being able to continually expand a perspective, shift a perspective. And when that happens, really incredible clarity can happen, and you can make quantum leaps and jumps in areas of your life, whether that's personally or professionally. And so today is going to be a little bit different because it's going to be interactive, and I'm going to actually have you doing some things that are going to require, first off, a pen and paper. So while you're grabbing something to write on and something to write with, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tee up for what we're going to do today. And today, what we're going to focus on, our content today, is going to be around the power of story, your story, and resilience, and how that relates to where you're at right now in your real estate sales business and your life, how it relates to how you interact with buyers and sellers or potential buyers and sellers, how it relates to how you parent and what kind of friend you are, what kind of, son, daughter, mother, father, based on your story. So we're going to take at the beginning of the call an inventory, because a lot of times what happens is we get so busy, and some of you might be multitasking or triple tasking right now. I'm going to invite you to stop triple tasking and really jump into what we're going to do as we take this inventory. You can take it on your phone. If you do digital notes better, that's fine. We're going to go through a quick inventory on the stories that each one of you have. And then we're going to take a look at those and then turn that into something that's going to create a foundation for a catalyst to move forward. So here's the power of story. We all have things that we tell ourselves. Sometimes we're aware of those things and sometimes we're not. And awareness before change. It's impossible if you're working to create anything more in your business, different in your business, or better in your business. The only way that change can happen is if you have an awareness first. And so where we're going to start today's conversation is in taking the opportunity for each of you to deepen your level of personal awareness in some key areas. Now, as much as we all like to go, oh, well, I'm this person at work and I'm this person at home and I'm this person with my kids and I'm this person when I'm with my best friend, that is a story of BS that you have told yourself, because everywhere you go, there you are. Period. We like to think that we're different situation by situation. However, it's not true. We are who we are. And so compartmentalizing, well, I'm like really great over here because I'm this, this, and this, and then over here, not so much because I'm not, it's a disconnect. So everything starts with awareness. And what we're going to begin with today is getting greater awareness around the stories that you're telling yourself in 4 key areas. So the first one we're going to start off with is physically. You each have a story that you're telling yourself physically. I'm tired. I'm excited. I've put on the COVID-20. I used to fit in those pants. I am an athlete. I am an incredible competitor. What is the story that you're currently telling yourself as it relates to you physically? And take a moment to just get clear on what that is and write it down. What is the story that you currently have that you are telling yourself as it relates to your physical body, your health? My metabolism has changed since I hit menopause. I'm about to go into menopause. This is the story I'm making up for myself. 20 years ago, it was easier to get out of bed. Now I can be sore by just turning over. What is the story you're telling yourself? All right, so the physical nature of your body is one area where you have a story. Here's another area where you have a story. You have a story relating to your business right now. Is the story, man, it's really hard to get buyers in contract because of how few listings there are. Is your story, well, my buyer might as well not even throw his hat in the ring because there's probably going to be 50 offers on that property? Is your story, I've got a buyer that's going to be willing to do what it takes based on how I'm going to coach them to win this offer? What's the story that you have in business right now? Is your story, well, we didn't do as much business because of COVID? Is your story, wow, COVID was the best year ever because I got focused, removed distractions because it was forced based on our environment and our business went through the roof? What's the story that you're currently telling yourself about your business?
Is this going to be recorded?
This is being recorded. Yes.
Awesome. So will you share the link later?
Yes. Gina will email the link out to everyone that's on the email list.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got our physical person and we've got our business. The third area that we're going to look at is relationships. What is the story that you're telling yourself about your relationships right now? Maybe it's your relationship with yourself. Could be your relationship with a significant other, a former significant other, a soon-to-be significant other. It could be around the relationships that you have with your children. What is your current story around that relationship? Relationships are hard. We have blended families. We're the happiest we've ever been and getting happier. Sometimes 10 years feels like 100. What is the story that you're telling yourself about your relationships? The relationship that you have with yourself. Am I the most dependable, trustworthy, committed person that I know? What is the story that you have currently about your relationships? The fourth area we're going to create some awareness around is the story that you have around your connection to something bigger than you. Some people will call that spirituality. Some people will call that consciousness. Some people will call that awareness. Some people will call that faith. What is your current relationship or story that you have about that? So these four key areas of life, every single one of us has a story. And the stories that we are telling ourselves are going to dictate our perspective, what we feel about things, if we're inspired or defeated. The stories are really powerful. Now, not everyone has to share. However, for those of you that choose to share, we're going to go through a powerful exercise of looking at what some of the stories are and using your point A on that story to catapult into an entirely different stratosphere of results with a couple of minor tweaks. So it doesn't matter what area of your life that we just took inventory in, who would be willing to share one thing around a story, what your story is in one area. When you're ready to share, you can come off mute and say your name and where you're from, because this call is agents from all companies all over the world. And so you might see some great referral sources in here for business. This is a business support call as well. So your name, where you're from, and what is one story that you're currently telling yourself that you'd like to share? Or maybe you don't want to share and you're going to share it anyway.
I'll share it, but it's on my phone, so I'm going to skip over to my notes, so you might not see me.
Okay.
In business, and I actually realized that this was an underlying story in all aspects, that I push every day, and I'm seeing results and success, but it's never to the level that I want them to be. And that was like recurring in physical relationship spirituality as well.
Thank you for sharing, Shamika. You are streaming in from Santa Cruz, yeah?
Yep, correct.
Okay, cool. So I push myself every day. I'm seeing results. I'm creating success, but it's never to the level that that I want, basically.
Correct.
And what does that feel like?
I never allow myself to celebrate the successes, so I always am feeling like I'm paddling upstream instead of recognizing where I'm actually at and where I've come from. And it can be frustrating, but it's also like when I give myself a moment to actually reflect, like really empowering as well. So both.
Okay, cool. So human beings don't do anything unless there's a payoff. Nothing. We won't do it, right? And if that's an entire concept you could spend a day thinking about. However, human beings don't do anything unless there's a payoff, unless we get something from it. So if we look at what you said, I push myself every day, I'm seeing results, but I never see the success that I actually want, or at the level that I want it. And you can see that in multiple areas. First off, that's a great awareness, right? So you've got, sometimes we like to look at things and go, oh, well, it's one-sided. Things are never one-sided. There's always a benefit and a drawback to everything. So you've got recognition that you're working, that you're putting effort in, and that you're pushing yourself, meaning you're not doing what's comfortable, you're moving outside of what's comfortable. And so that's the effective part. The disappointing part is, wow, for all that I do, I'm not where I thought I would be, or where I wanted to be, or where I anticipated that I would be, based on how much I've been doing and for how long. So that story is creating a certain feeling, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
probably at times you get discouraged, at times you get tired, at times you probably feel overwhelmed, at times you feel burned out. Would that be
All of that.
all of that? Okay. And there is a benefit that you're getting from that story that you're telling yourself. So what is the benefit that you're getting from that story being framed in that way?
The benefit is that I'm never satisfied with what I have, no matter what the subject matter. So I keep going, I keep pushing. I definitely wouldn't align myself with being like complacent or lazy. So the benefit is that I just keep pushing through to like the next level.
Okay. And so you keep pushing through the
So
next
it's my
level.
I guess it's my motivating factor.
Okay, use that to stay motivated. Great. So there's another benefit from it. What do you get to be right about with that story? There's something that you get to be right about with that story.
Oh gosh, what do I get to be right about with that story? That's a hard question. Well, I think I get to be right that, in fact, there is always like a next level of everything, that I actually will never achieve the highest level of anything, because there's always something bigger or higher or better.
Okay. And so what do you get to be right about as it relates to you, the woman Shamika?
That's a deep question. What do I get to be right about?
So let's remind what you said. I push every
Okay.
day. I'm seeing results. It's not to the level that I thought that I would see or that I want.
Right.
Which is another way of saying no matter what I do, it's not enough.
Right. That's the thing that I get to be right about, is that it's never going to be enough.
Yeah, and if we made that really personal,
yeah.
What if we put the word I in front of that?
I am never going to be enough. That's totally accurate.
So this is a story, right?
Yep.
It's a story that you're telling yourself that you get to be right about. The benefit of the story is it motivates you to keep moving forward and keep stretching and keep pushing and keep growing, which is fantastic, right? But is there a way that we could take the story that you currently have and adjust it ever so slightly, so that instead of it reinforcing you being right about never being enough, that we change that perspective to something that's going to fill you up with motivation, with inspiration, and with energy, and with joy, and with passion, versus the burnout, the fatigue, the overwhelm, the exhaustion?
Yes, I want that.
Okay. So there is this, it's called recontextualizing, right? I'm sure you guys have all heard the saying that when you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. Nod your head if you have heard that before, right? Here's another one. For things to get better, I've got to get better. For things to change, I've got to change. Nod your head if you've heard that one. So Shamika, thank you first off for volunteering, because you had no idea where this conversation was going to go. It's clearly very confrontive. However, I hope you're feeling that it's from a place of love.
Totally. I wouldn't have volunteered if I didn't want to.
Yeah, and from watching the different faces, because I have the benefit of seeing everyone on the screen, you being willing to be vulnerable and transparent with your story has been is a huge learning for the other participants that are on the call. If you were able to see their faces and their emotion and the way that they're resonating and perhaps seeing themselves in some piece of your story. So recontextualizing your story is a really powerful thing. Here's how I think of it. It is, what is the story? Here's the current story, point A. what is the story that I could change to telling myself such that it shifted and created either two things, my experience that I'm having, the outcomes or the results that I'm creating, or both. So if we think about that story, and there's tons of different things that you could shift it to. So just play with me for a minute here. By way of example, we could take that same thing. I push every day and I see results that I am both worthy of and deserving of, that are continuing to grow exponentially with the passing of each month and year.
I like that so much better.
Right? What does that feel like when you hear that story as it relates to you?
For me, it's
Can you
it's
say
like
that one more time? Sorry, I just wanted to hear what you said one more time, Casey.
This is the problem of when I say stuff, I never know what I've just said because it comes out. So I'll do my best to say it again. However, that's why I record everything, because half the time I have no idea. Things just. So your story of I push myself daily. I'm seeing results that I'm both worthy and deserving of, that are continuing to grow exponentially month over month and year over year.
That's exactly what you said.
So much pressure. So the feeling of that, right? Like if you take the part of the story that is working for you, right? The part that keeps you motivated and the part that keeps you moving forward, and recontextualize or shift the part of the story that is you getting to be right about the fact that there is something about you that is not enough, which is a lie.
Yeah.
We are wired, we are geared to be right. Like we will set things up so that we can be right, to reinforce those things that we all think about ourselves that are just not true, as a way of punishing ourselves. And it's really sick when you think about it. However, everybody does it. I do it. I know everyone on this call does it. It's part of being human, until we take a moment to go, I'm going to create a different awareness. I'm going to heighten the awareness that I have. I'm going to get clear on what that story is. Great. Here's the benefit. It keeps me moving forward. Here's the drawback. No matter what, I'm never going to be enough. No, cancel. So we recontextualize the part of the story that is actually pulling you down and making work a punishment, versus making it something that is rewarding and fulfilling and inspiring, and you creating your vision and bringing whatever that vision is to reality. And then you choose that to be the story that you're going to continue to keep in front of you as you move forward. So it's the things that are easy to do are also the things that are easy not to do. And a lot of times what I find is sometimes it's just easiest not to look. What I'm doing is working to a certain extent because I'm getting a certain set of results with it. And I'm so busy, or I don't want to take the time to look, because what might I find if I actually did look, right? Sometimes we can stop ourselves from even looking because we might be uncertain about what we uncover, right? However, I'm gonna throw out there that the looking is the most liberating thing that you can do, because then you have an actual truth around what is. And when you're clear about what is, if you want to shift it into something else, now you have the power to shift it. Versus if you're not willing to do that or be in that process, then nothing will change and things stay the same. So let's move into, and thank you again for being willing to share. We're going to move into the emotional cycle of change, because change sounds really romantic sometimes, particularly when it's like, that relationship, or that dream house that I'm working on, or what I'm going to do with my business this year, and all of that piece of it. And then when we get in the thick of it and start to really get in the thick of it, it's like this totally different experience that all of a sudden you can really fall out of love with the process. However, when we know what the process is going to be, when it happens, because you have an awareness around the process, now there's no disappointment around it. You can move through it because you can see it for what it is. So we're going to break down in this next part of the conversation what the actual emotional cycle of change is, because there's five different places that you move to and that you move through anytime you're working on creating change. So number one is uninformed optimism. Number one is uninformed optimism. And in uninformed optimism, you can see all of the benefits of how fantastic it's going to be and none of the costs that it's going to take to get there. So, you know, I like to think of this when you have an infatuation with someone that you maybe end up dating and then perhaps get married to. You know, in the beginning, it's like, whoo, look at, like, they are, where have they been my whole life? And they just dropped out of the sky. And it, like, this is incredible. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life, this person, right? This applies to other areas too. However, relationships always seem to be the one that kind of get the most chuckles because of how real this experience can be for people. So uninformed optimism is you're seeing all of the benefits and none of the costs. And, you know, physiologically, when you get into a relationship, there's a reason why this actually happens. If you study it, there's a book called Getting the Love That You Want that talks about the first 2 years when you're in a relationship with someone, physiologically what happens in your body, and then literally at the end of 2 years, how the physiology shifts and moves into something different, which is why where long-term challenges come up that if people aren't willing to look at, work through, and address, then they'll just go repeat that process with someone else. Or put their head in the sand and live a disconnected, unfulfilled, not very intimate relationship life, right? Not that any of that's right or wrong. Again, you'll hear Rick say that all the time. It's just kind of, it's human behavior, right? But when we understand, like, oh my goodness, okay, this first part is uninformed optimism about what I've imagined it to be, about the story that I've made up about what it's supposed to be, right? So take this into your real estate business. The name of that book is Getting the Love That You Want by Harville Hendrix. It was a PBS series for years. It's been updated multiple times. The single best book I've ever read on relationships, period, to date. My chiropractor introduced it to me back in 1999, 1 month after I'd gotten married to my first husband, where he told me, if you guys don't read this book, you are not going to stay married. I thought that was pretty ballsy for a chiropractor to tell a newlywed 1 month into marriage. However, I read the book. The first husband didn't. I read it thinking that is like so far-fetched out there. And then as I lived out the next 3 to 4 years of my life and backtracked, it was exactly on point, which helped me to reset expectations going into the next relationship, knowing a lot more and being able to be more effective. Great book, like the best relationship book ever. So uninformed optimism is the first part of this emotional cycle of change. The second one is informed pessimism. The second part of the cycle is informed pessimism. Now, this is actually where things start to get a little negative. Informed pessimism is now you've got some experience and you're into the process. So let's say you set a goal this year to double your real estate sales business, and you're getting it into the end of the first quarter, and you're looking at where you're at right now in your business versus your overall goal for the year. And if it was to double what you did last year, and you're looking at on track, not on track, where you're at, you're looking maybe, Shamika, at how much energy you've been expending into your business so far, and you're breaking that down over what it's going to look like over the rest of the year. And you start to get into this negative emotional state because, whew, do I really want to double my business this year? Like, if this is what my experience is, and I'm not even anywhere on track to doubling my business this year, and I'm already tired, I'm overwhelmed, I don't think I can write the 60th offer for my buyer hoping that they get in contract onto this one. Like, how in the world is this going to happen? And so this is where we start to question, man, is this really going to be worth it? Maybe I don't need to double my business this year. Maybe I just expand it by 50%. Because I mean, that's growth. That would be more than I did last year in my business. And I might be able to breathe and actually still be standing in the end of the second quarter going into the third quarter. This is where we start to, like, play with that story in an unhealthy way, What we're actually doing in the second stage of informed pessimism is we're looking for ways out. We're looking for the chicken exit, the reason, the excuse, the justification to change the goal. Because of the story that we're writing about the experience that we're having in real time about what's happening versus what we want to create. That is number 2, informed pessimism. Number 3, sorry guys, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Number 3 is the valley of despair. Now, how many of you whose favorite movie might be like mine, The Never-Ending Story? Show of hands, nods. Do you guys remember The Never-Ending Story? Am I dating myself? Movie from the 80s. Do you remember the pit of despair where Billy Crystal's down there and he like opens the door? No, that's not the pit of despair. It was the
That's Princess Bride.
the albino Princess Bride. Yes, thank you. Wrong movie. Not The Never-Ending Story. Princess Bride. Thank you, Carla. So
I love them both.
Right, they're such good movies, right? I can still watch them and get just as excited. The valley of despair is where we give up. It's that point where we feel so hopeless. We feel so far off course of where we actually want to be versus where we actually are. That it's like, man, I just got to stop the bleeding and stop the discomfort. So I'm going to pretend like I never said that I wanted that. I'm going to make up something else and go, oh, this was my truth. This is what I really wanted. And sell ourselves short. Because doing that is easier than continuing in the pain of discomfort of what happens when you are in the valley of despair. The fourth part of the cycle, here's where things start to pick up. So I'm glad you guys didn't jump off the call yet because things are getting better. The fourth part of the cycle is informed optimism. And this is where when you're in the valley of despair and you know this truth, you know that if one can do it, anyone can do it, and one has done it before me, therefore I can do it. I'm going to say that again. If one person can do it, anyone can do it. One person has done it, and therefore I can do it. So think about the person that ran the first 4-minute mile. It's impossible before that. And then how many hundreds of people did it after that because one person had done it? If what you're wanting to create in your business this year is something that you've never created before, yet there's someone else out there that has done it, that means that you can do it too. What is it going to take, right? I always ask this question when I'm coaching someone. On a scale of 1 to 10, here's the most 3 important questions you can ask yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing are you to learn? On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing are you to learn? Ask yourself that question. How willing am I to learn? The second question is, how willing am I to grow? How willing am I to grow on a scale of 1 to 10? And then here's the tricky one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing am I to change? How willing am I to change? What you've been doing up until now has gotten you the results and the outcomes that you've currently gotten. If you want to change those results and those outcomes, it's going to mean change. Does it mean drastic change? Most of the time, not. It's usually small but important changes. It's strategic changes that will create that. So how willing am I to learn, to grow, and to change? The answer to that has got to be a 10. If you're not a 10 when you answer those questions, it ain't happening. So you can remove the illusion that you might be living in, right? And it's illusion when we say, oh, this is what I want and this is where I end up. And we go, oh no, but this is what's happening. This is what I want. And you're so far off track because you're in the illusion that what you're doing, which is the same thing which you've always done, is going to get you something different. That is the illusion. So willing to learn, willing to grow, and willing to change is going to shift that. Okay, so that is informed optimism, where now, great. I see the benefits of taking the actions. I'm continuing to take the actions. I'm maybe willing to change how I'm doing some of those things and do them a little bit better. I'm going to share this with you because it blew my mind that I learned recently. So here is the deal. If you want to write this one down, because if it doesn't blow your mind, my intention right now is to implode every one of your brains in a really great way. Okay. So if in retirement, you want to live on $100,000 of income that's passive, meaning you don't have to go sell another home to get it. So if in retirement, you want to live on $100,000 a year of passive income, here's what you need to have. After taxes, you need to have $2.5 million that you've saved somehow that is earning 8% interest, that you're drawing 4% on each year. So I'm going to say that again. If in retirement, you want to live on $100,000 a year of passive income, you need to save after taxes $2.5 million. That $2.5 million needs to earn on average 8% a year, and you take a 4% draw. There's your $100,000 a year in retirement. $100,000 a year is $50 an hour. How many hours are you watching TV? Each day, each week? How many hours are you scrolling Facebook? Each day, each week. See, when we talk about moving into creating what you really want to create, time is created equal for everyone. And so maybe it's some shifts and some adjustments in how you manage your time or how you use your time that are going to be the difference maker for you getting on track by Q2. If you're off track right now, for you doubling your business, if that was your goal over last year. It's the little things that can become the really big things. So that was point number 4, informed optimism. The benefits of the actions that I'm taking are compounding. And then there's the 5th part of this emotional cycle of change, which is the success fulfillment part of it. It is where you have held yourself in the routine. You've been looking for ways that you can improve or be better. You're constantly assessing what's working, what can be improved. You're having those honest conversations around what is the story that I'm telling myself? And is the story that I'm currently telling myself going to serve me in creating the results and the outcomes that I want to create? Is the story that I'm telling myself helping me in the experience that I want to have as I'm taking the action to create those outcomes? If the story I'm telling myself is it's got to be hard and it's not worth doing unless it's hard, and it is so hard, and you're having an experience of it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, and that's motivating for you, great, keep doing it. However, if the experience that you want to be having is it's fun, it's inspiring, I am internally motivated, I don't need accountability because I'm jumping into it and making it happen. And it's the same amount of effort and it's a different experience, that is only going to happen based on the story you tell yourself about what you're doing. The most powerful thing that each and every one of us has is our stories. When you go sit in front of a potential buyer or you go sit in front of a potential seller that's looking at listing with you, you better darn well know their story, the story that they're willing to tell you and the story they're not telling you, because it's going to impact how effective you can be as you work with them, right? I remember selling real estate back in 2000, the blessed years of 2007 and 2008. When the stories that sellers that needed to sell their homes were one thing. And then when we got into it, I was like, oh, you're in looking at foreclosure because of how far you are into the process, because of how much denial you've been in. about how many months it's been since you've paid your mortgage and where you're actually at in the process, right? The story that people are telling you, your clients, and the story that they're not telling you is priceless. And if you want to sell more real estate, if you want to take your business to the next level, your story of what you're telling yourself as you go out to do that business and get that business is key. The stories that you're taking the time to learn or not taking the time to learn about the client sitting in front of you is going to dictate possibly the experience that you have, right? We just got finished, Rick and I, closing escrow on our first home together that we purchased. We've been together for 13 years. And there's a whole story behind that that I'm not going to get into on this call for the sake of time. And probably most of you wouldn't be interested in it. You know, everybody likes to talk about themselves and their stories, but really it's not that interesting. But what is interesting about this story is we got into where we're getting ready to remove contingencies and the lender dropped the loan. They decided they didn't want a loan on the property because it was mixed use, because it wasn't, all the units hadn't been sold. They just said, you know, we're no longer lending on loan. Credit scores over 800, 25% down, income great, loan gone. And so here's how this ties to business, right? We've been working with this gal that we got referred to because we were doing a stated income loan because of how our life looks and our businesses are structured. And so this means no tax returns, right? And we got, you know, referred. She was amazing. She did everything that she could possibly do within her power. She didn't really know our story. However, she went to bat when the loan dropped. She went looking other places. Well, we went looking other places as well. And what we ended up with was someone that got to know our story so well that she decided to act proactively in a way that she was the person that ended up getting our business. And here's what happened in that process is we said, listen, here's where we're at in the process. Here's the timeline where we're at in the process. And now we've got someone that's got an all cat. We are not removing loan contingencies because we don't have a loan. We're not removing appraisal contingencies because we haven't gotten that far. And an all cash buyer comes in behind us. And because we're not removing them, they want to give it to the all cash buyer, right? This is like, these are real things that are happening in the market. We just experienced them. So the new person that we're working with, we tell her our story. We tell her the story of what the last 13 years has been like to get us to this point in time. We tell her the story of how our situation has changed dramatically based on one business decision that Rick made a little over 4 years ago, that if he had not made that business decision, this would not be our story right now. The best business decision that he has ever made. If he hasn't told you about it, you can reach out to him and ask. We tell her that. We also tell her that we have a pretty hard timeline on this because of an investment we're doing in a cash call that we've got coming up for that investment, which now adds the pressure into the story. She says, all right, let me see what I can do. Like, we were upfront and transparent about the story because we know that in the transparency of sharing stories, you can always deal with what is. And if you have the full story, you can make the best decisions possible knowing what is, right? So she went to work, but she did one thing that was really key. So we've got 3 different people working on this now. The gal that we were originally working with, who was working her tail off, she already had all of our stuff. We've got the new gal who knows this. And then we've got a guy that wants to do a hard money loan and charge us a crazy amount for the hard money loan. That's 11 months, you know, an 11-month loan, and then flip it into a refi where we pay 150,000 in points and fees on the loans. Not an option over here. However, we'll keep it as an option just because you keep your options open, right? So the gal, Heidi, that we ended up working with, one really key thing happened with Heidi. She knew our story. She had confidence in her abilities, her relationships, her level of competency. And so she did one thing different than the gal that we really liked that we had started working with. When she was in the process and she got through the first approval and was waiting to get the second approval from the lender, the second approval being great, we'll order the appraisals now. Heidi ordered the appraisals on her own dime before having a full approval, knowing the appraisal process was 3 to 5 weeks out. And if she waited until she got the full approval, it was going to push us past where we needed to be. The lender that we were originally working with was waiting for full approval because that was what she chose to do before that. They both got full approval within a day of each other, but by the time those full approvals happened, we were 2 weeks further into being on the waiting list to get the appraisal than we would have been otherwise because of what Heidi did. This is a story of thinking differently. This is a story of being fully transparent. This is a story about communicating everything, even the vulnerabilities, so that you can be most effective. Like, unless you know the real story and the full story that's going on in front of the scenes and behind the scenes, you are not going to be set up to be as successful as you can be as you're out there working with your clients, as you're working to take your business to the next level. Same thing applies on a personal level, right? Being transparent and the full story and the discomfort that comes with the vulnerability and sharing those things in personal relationships, same thing. You're only going to get so far based on how far you're going to be willing to go in that. If you're looking to change the relationship that you've got with your health based on the story that you have around that, until you're willing to be fully open, honest, and transparent about what that is, accept it for what it is. And if you want to change it, then great. You've got the option to change it. The stories that we tell ourselves, that we don't tell ourselves, the stories that are always going on in the background are the things that are driving the outcomes. And if you're looking to create different outcomes, it's going to start with your story. It's going to start with the story of the clients that you're serving. Now, I know this has been a lot of information. And this is a time where we're going to come up for a breath of air. And would love to hear, before we have a grand finale finish, with a really fun video that you're all going to want to see. So if you're not in a place where you can see a video, you're going to want to be in a place where you can see a 45-second video as we end this. Would love to take some key learnings or ahas that you have had from our conversation today so far.
Hi, it's Mandy from Lake Tahoe. I think my biggest aha was the how willing are you to learn, grow, and change? And I came up with 10 and 10 for learn and grow. And then my brain just said a 6 on a change. And that was a real, whoa, I need to look at that. So thank you.
That is so exciting. Yeah, that is really exciting, Mandy. First off, here's the two things I love about what
That was really the feedback.
the two things I love about what you just said is, number one, when you were going through those questions, it's when you do stream of consciousness writing, when you just put pen to paper and you start writing, you see what comes out and you're not thinking about it. It's the truth that comes out. So as you're asking yourselves those questions, you were a 10, you were a 10, you were a 6. Versus, thinking about it, tweaking it, analyzing it. Is that really what it is? Like, that was the truth that came out, was the 6, right? Now you want to know the more exciting thing about that number?
Yes, please.
Here's the more exciting thing about that number. That number can go from 6 to 10 with a decision.
Okay.
And how that moves from 6 to 10 is a decision. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to change to become better. I'm willing to change to be more effective. I'm willing to change to get more of what I want. I'm willing to change to have a more enjoyable experience. I'm willing to change to realize my dreams. You decide to be a 10 and you are. It can happen that fast.
Okay.
Isn't that the greatest news ever?
Sounds so easy when you put it like that.
Things really are, until we as human beings get in and muck them up and complicate them.
Okay.
It is that. Thank you for sharing,
Let's
Mandy.
do
Who
it.
else would like
No,
to
thank
share?
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
On that same note, I did the same thing, 10, 10, and 6. And then you said, if you're not willing to be, or if you're not a 10 on all these, then there's no hope. And I quickly changed it to 10. I'm like, yeah, I could do that.
I love it. I love it.
What was the name of the relationship book you mentioned? I missed that.
Yeah, it's Getting the Love You Want by Harville, Harville Hendrix, Hendrix, I believe. Or it might be CKS. There's only one of them. You'll see it when it pops up.
Natalia here. I have a question for you, Casey. If you are willing to change the story that you tell yourself, how consistent do you have to be in telling it, and how long can it take? If you're really
Great
working at it.
Yeah, great question. So consistency is key, and it will take however long you decide it's going to take. So there is if you've read the book Atomic Habits, he talks about change in there and creating new habits, and a lot of it is the identity you take on. So the example he gives, and I think we may have talked about it, is that on the last call, and I don't remember if we did, I've done so many calls, that for the person that's wanting to quit smoking and someone offers them a cigarette and their response is, oh, thank you anyways, but I'm working on quitting. It's been, 45 days since I had my last cigarette. That is somebody that is working to change who they are on the outside by forcing a behavior. They're wanting to change who they are on the inside rather by forcing a behavior, versus the person that says, when they're offered a cigarette, oh no, thank you, I'm not a smoker. There's an identity change that's happened on the outside, which creates on the inside, which creates the behavior change on the outside. So when you're looking at the story that you're telling yourself, the story is only good as you changing the identity of the person that's telling that story. And the important piece is to take on the new identity. I'm not a smoker. It wouldn't make sense for me to have a cigarette. All right. And it can happen fast. Otherwise, it's consistency over time. You're going to be on sometimes, you're going to be off, you're going to be on the wagon, you're going to be off the wagon, you're going to be on the wagon, you're going to be off the wagon. The identity change is key. And then the consistency with that is the story. It's not like I'm not a smoker, except for on Sundays, I'm a smoker. It's I am not a smoker. Therefore, a cigarette is not appropriate for me, right? So if you really want the change, you've got to embrace and take on the full new identity that goes with that, because it's a foundational shift inside. And then the story that the story that you're telling, is dramatically impacted in that way, right? I look back on when I first started my real estate career in a class I was sitting in, and we went through this process of, what would you do if you had a check for $40,000 that showed up by the, tomorrow in your mailbox? What would you do with that money? You have to use it all, spend it. And if you don't, it's gone. Great. Another check for 40 grand shows up the next day. And like, what would you do with that? Use it, spend it, invest it. It's gone. Another check shows up the next day. And we went through this whole process. It was about a half an hour until people had run out of things that they would do with their $40,000 check. And the question at the end of that process, and if you choose to go through it yourself, it's a really powerful one, is what would I be doing with my time, energy, and effort? And for me, there was two things. So this is 15 years ago. For me, there was two things. Number one, by the time I'm 40 years old, I will not be working for money. I will not be trading my time for money. I will have a passive income that meets and exceeds all of my needs and what I need to finance my lifestyle. So that was one thing. And the second thing was, okay, what am I doing with my time? I'm traveling the world and I'm speaking and empowering people to help unstick themselves and live what they define as their best life. And that was a story that I started telling myself. I was 31 years old. And did that happen by the time I was 40? I was 80% of the way there. It happened shortly thereafter that. And by the time I was 40, was I doing those things? Yes. Enter 2019, 60 plus flights around the world, Europe, South America, in countries where I spoke the language, didn't speak the language, stages, doing that through my career. So it's the identity you're going to take on and the story that you tell yourself. And once you take on that identity and that story, it doesn't change. That is who you are. And you act as if, you think as if, you become as if. And if you see yourself thinking differently, or you catch yourself acting differently, you're like, wait a minute, that's not who I am. I am this. So part of it takes, some self-discipline to catch yourself and hold yourself to it. But the great news about that is if you tell other people that you have close to you what that is and who you are and where you're going, you've now created a community of support around you that in the event they hear you speaking anything different, they can gently say, I don't know who you are, but that does not sound like the Natalia that I know and where she's going, right? So you create support around you and it does amazing things. All right, we'll take
Thank you.
one more share before our video.
Casey?
Any key learnings or questions? Yes, hi, Laura.
Yes. Hey, Casey, it's Laura Lee from Aptos, California. And I'm just so pleased to be here. So thank you so much. And what I got out of your teaching today is I had a cancer year last year and I'm cancer free. And when it comes to my body, I am non-negotiable. No shit, no kidding. I'm a little powerhouse and always around my body. I'm from my career, like having last year kind of knocked me off my rocker. When I look at how I can be powerful and and it's just a story, I tell myself, well, I'm a mediocre agent. But I get it. It's just a story. But the paradigm shift that I know that I need is how to translate my effectiveness in the other areas. Like I know I'm an incredible mother. I'm an incredible partner, friend, inspiration, health. But when it comes to my business, I am more timid. I'm less than I should be. So that's my question is like, I get it. It's a story. But I think we all have certain areas where we're just a little, like we're more effective than others. And this is mine.
I love it. Well, thank you for being so transparent and sharing that. First off, I want to highlight one thing. You said more than not as much as you should be. So number one thing to cease doing from now forward is to stop shooting on yourself. Right?
Okay, thank you.
That's a big decision. Stop shitting on yourself and stop shitting on others on what they should have done or what you should have done. Nobody wants to be shit on. Here's the second thing is the story is I'm one of the top agents in this area. And so I am one of the top agents in this area. Not I am the top agent in this area. That is all about ego, right?
Yes.
I'm one of the top agents in this area. Is an identity that you take on. And how do we know that? Because what does it take to be a top agent? What it takes to be a top agent is all of the skill sets that are transferable that you've already created with your health and your body. The consistency, the discipline, the focus, the work. You're transferring those skill sets into your career. And as you do it, it is inevitable that you become one of the top agents in the area. So the story that you tell yourself is I am a top agent in this area.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay.
Can I also say that I would not have invited you onto my team if you weren't one of the best agents on this planet, Laura Lee, because you are.
Thank you.
I
Thank
love
you.
it. It's validation and support. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left, 2.5 minutes left. We're going to end with a video, and here is the video tee up. You're going to want to see this. So every now and then, and sometimes often, we get knocked down. And sometimes we get knocked down a lot, and it can be tiring getting knocked down. And the more you get knocked down, sometimes the less you want to jump up or the less you're ready to jump up. And this is really where resilience comes into play. And there's one thing that I want you to take away from this video as you see it. The visual is going to be powerful. And it's the thought that I'm going to leave you with today. That is the story that if you choose to go with this story, it will change everything. So I've got the video queued up. It is a quick video. Here we go. Let's do it.
Morning, everyone! That's right. I want you to do everything that you can to knock your toy down. Who is the strongest in class? Jerron, come on up, please. I'm going to give Jerron a prop, and he's going to try to knock it off the table. Ready, Jerron? Okay, children, who can tell me what it means to have resilience? Yes, Paige?
Resilience means if you make the toy fall down, it'll come back up very, very fast.
Very nice.
So resilience, it is how those toys are made. We are made to bounce back. We are made to get up. We are made to keep going. It is how you are made. Everyone go out and make it a great rest of your Friday and week. Rick will be with you next week, and Gina will push out the recording. Thanks so much for being with us today. Everyone make it a great day.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you so
You're
much.
awesome. Thanks, Casey.
Bye.
Bye all.